Welcome to Books and Brews Light number 50. Oops, I have my sheet off to the side. Number 55 is Sheri Miter. And Sheri, I would like to welcome you. I had fun looking at some of your bio and interests online. I think you're the first person who said you like cocktails, craft cocktails.
Yes.
So do you have a favorite?
I don't. I am one of those people. My poor husband cannot order a cocktail for me because you never know what I'm going to want. Might be an old fashioned. I love tequila. Could be a red wine though. So who knows? So.
Well, in honor of that, I was thinking about, I'm not sure if I really have a favorite cocktail, but there is one at a place a little bit north of here. It's called the Coal Miner's Daughter. And the first time I had it, it was so good. So every time I go back there, I ask for the Coal Miner's Daughter. And every time they say, we don't have lavender, which it's made with. So I'm thinking I'm going to start carrying lavender in my purse. Now, it's too early for cocktails, but I did put some lavender in my water. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah, I love that.
I was just curious if I would really taste it. I'm going to put it in upside down to maybe get the flavor in there. And then I think I'm going to start growing lavender again. So you're getting the farm girl me because I've been working all day. And as soon as we finish, I have to go put the chickens, rearrange them all in their coop and barn. So there was no point putting on nice clothes. So usually I try and be a little dressier than this, but whatever.
Yeah.
So tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So I just wrote the book, Discovering Your Calling, and it came from a lot of my past. I spent 25 years in direct sales for a career, loved it until I didn't anymore. I've always been an entrepreneur. So my husband and I owned a chimney cleaning business before that. I did not climb on roofs and clean the chimneys. I did all the marketing and everything behind that. So I've always just been fascinated again with entrepreneurs, small businesses, leadership, self-improvement, personal development, all of that. I just absolutely love. Personally, my husband just retired a couple of years ago. He's a retired firefighter. So that's another part of our world that we live in. And we have 3 grown sons, 8 grandkids now, all across the country, which makes life very interesting. And
you travel a lot to go see them?
We try to, yes, we try to. One's in Toledo now, one family, one's down in Florida, and then one's local to us.
I'm here in Tennessee, so I have one granddaughter, maybe about 4 or 5 hours from me in Nashville. And then the other 3 are in Iowa, the northwest corner of Iowa. So pretty long drive.
Mm-hmm. And I don't, honestly, I guess I'm a military brat. So I grew up not living near family. So it's not a foreign concept for me. And I kind of like being the visiting grandparents because then we're there. We stay the night with them. We get the morning snuggles. We got to say goodnight. I feel like we don't see them as much, but when we see them, it's just special. It's very special versus the local families. You're trying to juggle everything and you fit things in, and the visits just aren't, I don't think they may be more often, but they're not this. It's just different.
You know, that's an interesting idea. I grew up in the military too. So what branch were you?
Air Force.
Me too. Did you live in Germany?
We did not. We never traveled overseas, which always kind of bummed me out. But
okay. So I just have to run down the bases. We were at Scott in Belleville. We were at Andrews Air Force Base in DC. Biloxi, I keep wanting to say Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi. I'm trying to remember what came after that. And then we finished up, my dad was teaching at ROTC, so there was no base up in Duluth, but are any of those familiar to you?
I've heard of, like, especially Andrews, but no, I was born in New Mexico. I don't know the name of the base there, but Roswell, New Mexico, on the 4th of July, which always is.
Oh, cool.
Yes. Then my dad went remote, so we lived in Kansas. Then we were at the Army base in New Jersey for a short while. Then we were down in Louisiana, and then we were in New York, actually a different place in New York, and then back down to Louisiana, and then finished up in northern Michigan, which is where I met my husband. And he was in the service for 4 years there, and then he's from where we live now. So that's how we ended up here.
Okay.
And he
Okay.
stayed in the Guard. So
Yeah, I hear what you're saying though, because we didn't necessarily see our grandparents more than once or twice a year. And of course, when we lived in Germany, not for a couple of years, like they came to visit us. My aunt came to visit us a couple of times. So I knew who they were, but I get what you're saying, that you grow up without necessarily that concept.
Right. And, the relationship I had with my grandparents looks totally different than what we have with our kids. And thank God for FaceTime. I mean, it makes it seem
Yes.
like we can. So when we are
Right.
there, they know our faces, even the babies,
Yeah.
they've seen
Yeah.
us.
I should try and do that. I never know when to call my son and daughter-in-law because they're busy, they're juggling 3 kids and a job, and my daughter-in-law keeps busy with book club, and I think she gardens with my grandchildren and things.
Oh, that's
So
fun. Good.
yeah. Anyway, so you were a sales director for Mary Kay, I think.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you earned the pink Cadillac. Do you still have
I
that?
did. No, yeah, there's a picture of it. You can't see in the fuzziness, but no. Unfortunately, once you retire, you don't get any more free cars. So it's
Do they take it back?
It's so every 2 years you requalify for new cars. So there were quotas when you had a free car. Yeah.
Okay.
So
I didn't realize that.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, just
So
like
how
any
did you
job.
get
Mhm.
from being very successful in Mary Kay to what you're doing now and to your book?
Well, a lot, and that's why I kind of wrote the book. It's kind of based on, which I think a lot of us do, my story when I realized like where I was and what I was going through, and then once I got through it, I look back and like, oh wait, there's a whole plan here. There were multiple things, and a big thing is part of what I'm going to read today. So I'll save that, of just feeling like I don't know if I want to keep hitting quotas all the time. For the longest time, I thrived on that. And I miss somebody not telling me what to do every day. We were independent. So it was a choice to make. Did I want to strive for that goal? So that was a piece of it. The other big piece was I knew when my husband was going to retire, we always had a sailboat. We're boatless right now, but we've always had sailboats, and we had a big dream to take off and travel on a sailboat just down the East Coast. We're not ocean going people at all. But we wanted to just get a bigger boat and travel on it. And I did not see where being responsible for customers and team members, that was not going to be conducive to living on a sailboat for a year. So that was a big piece of it. And then there were just some little things that popped up of just, I didn't like the direction the company, some of the decisions they were making kind of went against some of my values. So,
Okay.
multiple things. Mm-hmm.
That makes it hard.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like you were in great shape to set off on your own. So did you end up, your book is, clarify, is it for people who kind of are tired of what they're doing, don't know what they want to do next, don't know what they want to be when they grow up? What is the exact angle?
Mm-hmm. Yes, to all of that. It's really geared toward that person that is successful now. It is written for the woman, but I've had men read it and found value in it. That is successful, but just something inside, there's an angst. And sometimes we can't. And that's where I was too, is like, I couldn't even put my finger on it because it didn't make sense to leave. When I left, I was at the height of my career. I had just earned the pink Cadillac when the thoughts started coming in that like, I don't know if I want to do this forever. And it shocked me as much as it shocked anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think what we see a lot is people change careers when they have a bad boss. That makes sense. They change careers when they think something's going to happen with a layoff or something. Maybe they're forced to change careers. There's certain times that it makes sense to change a career. And what I found is it didn't make sense for me to change my career. And I'm not alone in that. There's a lot of women out there who, on paper, it looks really successful.
So do you find that that's very common? Like, how common would you say that is for women to just feel like, I'm not where I'm supposed to be anymore and want to make a change?
I think it's more common than we know, which also makes it kind of challenging for me as a coach because it's not talked about. Nobody talks about this.
Over the course of my life, I've often said I was born with midlife crisis. By the time, I kid you not, by the time I was 10, I was like, man, I've been alive for a whole decade and I've done nothing with my life in a decade, which, looking back makes no sense. Like 5 of those years you were barely cognizant.
Right.
But so I started writing a novel, because my life was just passing me by. I thought, well, which, it's not a bad thing because it does give you some direction. But I knew from the time I was young, I wanted to write, I wanted to play music, and I wanted to work with dolphins. 2 of those I've done. I've gone swimming with the dolphins twice. And then I taught music lessons for 32 years, absolutely loved it while I was writing, which I love too. And a change of life kind of sprang upon us when we decided, okay, last time it was toilet paper you couldn't find. Next time it's going to be food. So we said, okay, well, we're going to do the logical next thing. We're going to get acreage and start learning how to raise all these animals and food, which is why I'm in my Carhartts. Got to go play with rabbit poop and chickens after this interview. But the point is that I've never really been in that position. I always knew where I was going. And I was surprised when I started realizing how many people get to high school, to college, even out of college, and they still just don't really know what they want to do. And so how do you help people with that? I think there is something called, I'm trying to read my notes, Clifton Strengths.
That's a big piece of it. Yes. And I think what happens, like the majority of the women, like who I wrote the book for and who I really love to work with, like they've gotten through and they've built a career. They're usually about 10 years in. I find that seems to be that mid 30-ish, so mid-career is when they start realizing that, like, yes, I have been successful, but I don't want to do this for 20 more years. So they still have a lot of career ahead of them. And I think that happens a lot because they chose the career because, again, at 18, for most of us, it's like, I don't know what I want to study. It's
right.
Somebody else says, I've heard people like, I just went down to see what job would pay the most, and that's why I picked my degree. Or the parent said, this is what you should do. So the thinking behind it isn't always right. And they could be successful. But it's just I think the older we get, the more we realize that this is not the right path. But so how I help is the Clifton Strengths. That's the first thing. I say everything starts with strengths, no matter what. And it's, if you haven't heard of it, it's Gallup. It's owned by Gallup. So it's called Clifton Strengths. Some people know it as Strengths Finders. They changed the name to honor Don Clifton.
Gallup, the poll company?
Yep.
How in the world did a poll company end up in that field?
I'm not 100% sure. At some point, they partnered with Don Clifton. So,
okay.
And because there is a lot of study behind this assessment. That's one of the reasons why I love it, because there is so much scientific study background behind it. It's not just like somebody made it up.
Right.
It's based on study, and I guess that's how they did it, because it's based on studying what makes people successful. And Don Clifton was what makes people, like, what's right with people, instead of focusing on what's wrong with you and your weaknesses. His thought, well, what if we studied what people's strengths were? What if we studied what they do well? And it's your natural, what it tells you in black and white is what your natural innate talents are. We all have innate talents, and I'm not talking about singing well or even writing well. It's not those kind of talents. It could be how you think. You're a very strategic thinker. It could be how you build relationships. It could be how you execute things. It could be how you influence people. So it tells you in black and white your natural talent theme. So it's usually, the reaction when people take the assessment is usually like, wow, that's pretty accurate. How do they know that about me?
Okay.
You
So
know,
the questions don't speak very directly to this. They're not obvious, like, are you a strategic thinker? Yes or no.
no.
Okay. So they're kind of coming at it sort of sideways with things that would reveal.
Yeah. So there's like 180. It's pretty intensive. There's like 180 questions. And they're
Wow.
questions like, it's all good answers. So it's like, but do you think, more this way or more that way?
Mhm.
And if people are honest with their answers, then it's pretty revealing. And then what I do is just go in and kind of help people decipher that. Like, that's the first step we do. It's like, okay, you have this. What does that all mean?
And so once they get all their strengths, is that related to this calling map? Do they say, here are a bunch of careers that are great for people with those strengths, or how does that work?
Right. So it doesn't do that. So the strengths just tells you how you can be successful, no matter what job you are. Now, there are clues in there that can help guide somebody as to what direction they might want to go. But it also just helps them be like, but I really want to do this. Is like, okay, so how can your strengths help you do this? So it works well. And it's not meant to tell you as a job, career, to point you specifically in, oh my gosh, this is the career for you. It's
Right,
not
right.
that. But again, there's clues in there you can pick out if you know what to look for. And that's just like for my framework, that's the first step we do. There's a lot of other things I look at as well. But I mean, my husband used it begrudgingly.
Was he kind of a test subject for you?
Yeah,
Or
he was. I always say he was the hardest sell I've ever had to make for Clifton Strengths.
that's funny.
But once he got it and he embraced it, he wishes he had it, because later in his last couple of years, he was in a leadership position as a firefighter, and he did use it quite a bit. And he realizes now, it's like, oh, I should have embraced this a little sooner. Would have helped a lot.
What did he find that surprised him?
So one of the things, interestingly enough, one of the talent themes is empathy. And it is empathy like we know it, but it's even deeper than that. Whereas somebody with high empathy is just, you really do feel what other people's emotions are, and you can understand. He just has a great way of just really putting himself in somebody else's shoes. He was really good at that. And he realized that if he just embraced that, because when he first took it, another theme is command is another talent theme. I have high command. That just means even if I don't have leadership title, people with high command, if nobody else is taking ownership of the leadership, we will step in and take ownership, because we value good leadership.
Okay.
So he was mad that he didn't have high command.
Well, you got to go with what you have, right?
But when he learned to embrace things like empathy, he realized that that's what made him a good listener. That's what made him easy, that his men could come to him with their problems. And as he said, didn't mean he had to agree with them. He wasn't being sympathetic to them necessarily, but he could put himself in their shoes and understand their view as well as help them see his view on something.
Okay.
So he could just learn things like that. He also has like high responsibility, so makes him feel in charge. He has higher ranger, so he could see things to move the pieces around and see how they fit. So
yeah, but it sounds like most people aren't really surprised with what the test shows them. Is it so they kind of knew they had those strengths, or
so
how does that work?
Yes and no. The challenge is most of us don't recognize them as talents or strengths.
Okay.
Because a lot of times we've been told, or many times I should say, we've been told whatever that thing is, that's actually a weakness of ours.
Really? How would empathy be portrayed as a weakness, or why would someone think that?
So like empathy, they may not be portrayed that, but it could be, they could be considered softer.
Okay.
Somebody could think
I
that,
can
well,
see
you
that.
can't be a leader. You have a high empathy. How is that a leadership skill? Things like that. Some of the other talent, like command, I was told I was bossy as a kid.
Okay. I can see that. How much does it come back to maybe the way they were raised, that maybe their parents found fault with them, whereas if they'd had parents who said that's a good skill, does it all come back to that?
A lot does. A lot for not recognizing that it's a talent does. Even the example that makes it really crystal clear is one of the themes is called woo, and woo stands for winning others over.
Okay.
And people with high woo love to make friends with everybody. They want everybody to like them.
I'm just thinking, we have a contractor here working on our bathroom, and she keeps saying that of her friend, that she is friends with everybody. And there's not, they saw us at a restaurant on Halloween. We didn't see them. And so my husband asked, well, why didn't you come over and say hello? And she's like, because she knows everybody in the entire 3 towns. By the time we got to you, after everybody we talked to, we were never going to make it. So it's kind of funny that she was just telling us that, and then you mentioned that.
Yes. And I'm pretty sure my number 2 granddaughter is high woo, and she's only 9, so she hasn't taken the assessment yet. But she gets in trouble at school for talking too much. And then I'm doing like workshops or talking to people. Almost everybody that has high woo says that, yes, I was constantly getting my desk moved,
So they're chatterboxes.
Exactly. But on the flip side, she's the sweetest. She's always the last one out of the building because she knows the janitor's name. She knows everybody's names, and she has to go say goodbye to them, like the friend. And so,
well, that is a good gift. I didn't have that growing up, but I think there were a lot of family things going on too, where I was afraid to talk to people. And so I was always, I don't want to say envious, but I wished I could be more like that, that you just easily make friends with everyone.
Right.
So that's neat.
Right. So, and there's all, again, as far as for strengths, a lot of times it is because we weren't encouraged to use that talent theme. Another thing too is a lot of times we don't recognize that it's a strength because it just comes so naturally and easy for us.
Yes. It's like fish don't know they're in water.
Exactly. But if you told that fish to go climb a tree,
yes.
I actually have a slide that we say, if a fish is, I forget how it goes exactly, but it's something to the effect, if a fish is judged based on his ability to climb a tree, he'll live his entire life thinking he's stupid.
I've heard that. That's a good saying. Yeah.
And that's basically where strengths lies, because so many times we're put in a box and we're told we need to think, feel, and behave. That's what strengths tells you, is how you naturally think, feel, and behave a certain way in order to be successful. So
is this, I'm trying to remember, what is the system where you end up with 4 letters? Like I'm
No, that's
in,
disc.
okay, are they related? Are they similar?
Nope,
Not
this
at
is
all?
no,
Okay.
they're not. They're totally not related. Well, there's Myers-Briggs. That's the other 4
That's, I
letters.
think, what
Yes.
I'm thinking of.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
Myers-Briggs, there's DISC, and I've done them all. And that's, to me, Clifton Strengths is the most useful. It really
Mhm.
gives you some solid things to look at, like, oh, that's why I do that,
Yep.
and then it's good for relationships, it's good for marriages too, to know, like,
Okay.
oh,
Interesting.
that's why, like, probably every morning my husband hears. So I was thinking, I have very high strategic themes.
Uh-huh.
And he also knows that sometimes he needs to cool down my thinking, but other times he just needs to let it. That's my gift. So it's helpful that way, you know.
I
Mhm.
missed a couple words there. You froze up for a second. Do you tend to overthink?
Sometimes I can say, and like, just thinking of new ideas all the time instead of acting on them. So he can help me with that. Mhm. Sometimes I can overthink. I just come up with a lot of new ideas all the time.
Mhm.
So he's good now recognizing that, like, okay, wait, we need to stop thinking of new ideas and just act on one, that kind of thing.
I I sometimes feel like that with my husband. He's great at thinking up ideas. So he's now got, oh, how many books? I've lost track of how many books are in progress because we have this Ivy League series that I'm working on, need to get back to. And he just keeps thinking up new mysteries and new shenanigans she can get involved in with her 16-year-old son. She's a young widow and they travel the country together. And at a certain point, I'm like, hold on, you've already got me writing 5 books. You're good at thinking them up, but it takes a while to write them. But we do have fun with it. So,
Mhm.
do you have a reading ready?
I do. I do. Let me grab that. Switch the glasses. So this was how the Discovering Your Calling Academy was born. So it's chapter 1. So before we dive into your journey of discovering your calling, let me take you back to the summer of 2018. It didn't make sense to me. I had just led my sales team to the pinnacle of success in our company, a level I had strived for and dreamt about for the past 25 years. It seemed like only others could achieve it, never me, but we did it. We did the work, sold the products, and added the team members. And it felt amazing to say we had crossed that line. I was now a pink Cadillac sales director leading a top team in our company. Yes, I was super proud of what we had just accomplished. I just thought the feeling of achievement would last longer. Less than 48 hours later, I was out for my morning walk with my best friend and power partner, who had crossed the same level I had and led her team to reach the same goal. Though we were both excited about being in the same town and driving the same iconic cars, I remember turning to her and asking, "Is it ever enough?" It was the first time I realized that the success we had achieved might not be the answer to lasting career fulfillment. It had dawned on me that to maintain this level of success, we would have to get right back into hustle mode. And if that wasn't enough, there were already new goals to set and new levels to hit. Did I want to continue working this hard for the next 5, 10, or 20 years? At that moment, I realized how tired I was. That seemingly simple question, "Is it ever enough?" led me to 18 months of questioning my career. A career I had loved dearly, a career that had let me be a work from home mom, a career that financially benefited our family, a career that taught me to be a leader and provided self growth like no other company ever could, a career that was my identity and one I thought was my calling forever. This moment of questioning was the beginning, not just of doubts about my future, but of a life-changing decision. 19 months later, I went from asking, "Is it ever enough?" to firmly deciding I've had enough. When our company made a decision I didn't agree with at all, This decision, one that went against my core values, was the final piece that led me to make the difficult choice to step down from my position as a sales director. I'll share more about this in chapter 7. We're not going to do that now, but it's in the book.
But that's the hook to get people to read.
Yes. Once the news broke that I would be stepping down from my position, I expected everyone to think I was crazy. Heck, even I thought I was crazy. It just didn't make sense to walk away at the height of my career. But inside, I knew God was calling me to do something else. The problem was I had no idea what that something else would be, and that scared me to death. But I trusted that if God was calling me to do something else, He would show me what that was if I was willing to take the first step. Now, I knew I couldn't just give my notice and easily walk away from my 25-year career. After all, I had put my blood, sweat, and tears into this career. I loved my team members, was well respected, and well compensated. I couldn't just walk away in 2 weeks, but I also knew I needed a departure date and plan. I needed to stay on board as a sales director for 16 more months, finishing out the physical year before retiring at the end of the following June. Just by making this decision to leave, things started to change for me. I had peace knowing that I had a date for my departure, my team would be looked after, and I had a year to create something else while I tied up the loose ends. And I'm actually just going to stop there because then it goes into more detailed stuff.
Yeah, I was really struck by the comment that the feeling of success didn't last, and coming to this realization, is it ever enough? What was your answer to why that feeling of success didn't last for you, and why it never felt like enough?
I don't know if I ever actually answered that question. I just knew that I didn't want to keep. For me, it reached that level because it was never going to be enough. There's always in that career, there's always another level. There's always, and I think in life, there's always more we can strive for. So I think it's really knowing when is it enough, what is enough for us, and we each have different lifestyles, and we have to know what's right for us.
But I found that interesting because it suddenly dawned on me, I have very rarely felt like that. And so it's obvious from reading your blog that faith is central to your life. And I think this was kind of a stepping out in faith sort of a moment. Have you felt since you did that like it is enough and like you're not always chasing success?
Definitely. I mean, I love to achieve things. So it's actually interesting because on the flip side, I miss having those goals. As I said in the beginning of our conversation, I miss having something to reach for, but yet I don't miss it. It's a paradox, I'm always this struggle of that because now I set my own goals and stuff. So I still like to achieve things. But bottom line, I know is I just want to feel like, because faith is so, important for me, I want to feel like I am using my gifts and talents.
Yes. Yeah, and that goes back to what I said about I was born with midlife crisis and, very, very early awareness that we only get one life and we are called to do something. So we better be doing it and not face God and have to explain, why didn't you do what I wanted you to do? And I think that's part of why, as you were reading, I was thinking, okay, I have not attained the success I would like. To my knowledge, my book was never on the New York Times bestsellers list, although it did sell very well when I was marketing. I'm not playing in a major symphony orchestra, which is what I would have liked to have been doing. So by my standards, in some ways, I'm a failure. I didn't get the things I wanted or achieve the things I wanted. And yet I don't feel that way because I feel like I've always been where I'm supposed to be. Like when I ended up teaching music in a school rather than performing in a symphony, I just had this piece that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And so I would think that might tie in.
Yes, very much so. And that's it, because most of us aren't going to play in the symphony. most musicians, we're not going to be on the best time seller, but is it about what if one person reads the book?
Right. Well, that's a great point, because I had one person say to me, and this was somebody who doesn't agree with my way of thinking or life at all. And yet she read the book and said to me, I need to be more like Neil. Now, Neil shares my faith, definitely has nothing in common with her. And I was really struck that the book is not preaching about any of the things I believe, but she saw something good in Neil and said, I need to be more like him. And I was kind of laughing too, because we lived in the suburbs up until 4 years ago. 2 years ago, we moved from northern Minnesota to the Appalachians. And I had some of my friends in my writers group, which I'll be attending by Zoom later this evening. And some of them really kind of pulled me aside and with a lot of concern said, are you happy? I wasn't playing music anymore. I'm not playing music very much, but every day, like we have a farmhand 5 days a week, but on the 2 days I'm out there taking care of the animals, it just feels like this is the way we were meant to live. And again, where's the success? I'm scooping rabbit poop and doing fun things like that, building sheep shelters. But it feels like the way we were supposed to live. And then you lose that sense of, I'm always trying for the next big thing. No, I'm just doing what needs to be done each day. And there's a lot of peace in that.
Right. And I think that's what matters.
Yeah. So I did read a couple of your blog pieces, and I highly recommend people go read them. In one of them, you talk about how people, and I think maybe women especially, feel like we need to do everything. Why? How did we get into this?
Right.
This mess
of needing to do everything, or
Yep.
I don't know. I think a lot is not expecting others to help us, maybe. I don't know.
Well, I saw it coming out of college. Well, I shouldn't say coming out of college, but I think I was growing up in the 70s and 80s, and we were very much being pushed that women can do it all. You can have it all. You can have the family, you can have the career. But what I found in practicality that meant was every time I got the notification, hey, send in your class notes to my college. Okay, what did I do? I mean, I was doing a lot of things. I was performing in jazz bands. I was writing books. I was founding a music program at a school. And I was also having a lot of babies. And I found that the society that raised me had this voice in my head going, you can't just tell them you had another baby. You have to have an accomplishment. And the older I get and the more I can see, I think more clearly, I've been following my heart. I've been doing what I want to do, but there are a lot of women like my younger daughter. She wants to be a mother. And I think in the end, that's, that I raised my kids well to be productive citizens and, stick to their faith. That matters. And I think that's part of the problem why women end up feeling like being a good mother isn't enough.
Right. And I think a lot is society. But I feel like, and I don't know, would love to hear your thoughts. I almost feel like the pendulum is kind of swinging back to that.
That's an interesting question. Now, my husband and I, sometimes we go to a couple of different churches depending on the day. We're Catholic, and so some days
the same.
Yeah. Some days we go to our local church, which we're in the Appalachians. Everybody here is Baptist, except us and 10 other people. I'm exaggerating a little. But it's a very small church. So sometimes we make the hour-and-a-half drive down to Knoxville and we go to the Latin Mass. And what we have seen when I was raising my kids, I was the oddity. I'd be sitting there with my 9 kids, plus a couple of their friends, a couple of my nephews. I'd have 13, 14 kids in the pew with me. But even when it was just my family, I was the biggest by far. Any other family might have 4. And what I'm seeing now as the years have gone by, I think there are a lot of families like mine where the kids were taught the faith better than I was. I was raised when the whole CCD for 12 years was Jesus loves you. Okay, that's great, but there's a little bit more to it. And so I really tried to teach my kids a whole lot more about prayer, about the Bible, about why we believe what we believe, about asking questions so that they can understand. And I think there are a lot of kids raised like them that I'm now seeing at the Latin Mass, these pews full of families with 5, 6, 7, 8 kids. I didn't see that when I was raising my kids. So yes, I definitely think the pendulum is swinging because there's a generation or two that thought, we're missing on something. We're missing something deeper. Like my generation being pushed, women need to go out and conquer the world. And here I am thinking I'm drawn to conquer the world. That's in my nature. But for a lot of people, it's not. They just want to raise their family.
Right. And I think, and that's to me where it goes back to your calling. And I think it also, I believe there are seasons of our calling.
Yes.
And I think going to something you said earlier about having that peace, it sounds like you've done this well, is knowing in what season I'm in.
Yes.
What am I called to do right now in this season? And I think for a lot of moms, I mean, that was why I started my Mary Kay business, is I wanted to be a mom, but I also knew that I needed something to call my own, and I wanted my own cash. I just wanted $50 a week. That was my goal. That was my high
and look where it led.
That was my ambition level then. But my season was raising my 3 boys. That was my calling at that time. And then my calling became, creating this business. And now my calling's helping other women become their calling and helping people find their strengths. So I think it is about embracing whatever season we're in and being okay with it, despite what society says.
I think that's major, and I think, again, calling that, as my younger daughter, she is called to be a mother. She's called to be with children. My older daughter called to get a PhD and called to work with horses. And so she works with handicapped kids and horses, and she teaches vaulting. So do you know what that is? Like tricks on horseback?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so she works with handicapped kids to teach them vaulting and get them working with horses. So, they're just called to opposite things. Right. Whereas I often think they each took half of me. But anyway, so how has your faith shaped your work with calling?
That's a great, well, 2 things. And one thing that, I don't know if this is really answering, but I really feel like it's such an important piece of why I wrote the book, why I've believe the things I believe too, is also the life is short. My mom had passed away from cancer unexpectedly at 50. She was not even 59. She would have turned 59 3 months later. But because they were military, as you know, my dad retired at 40. So they had 19 more years of really living the retired life. They traveled to see their grandkids. They traveled around. They had an RV and traveled around. They did all the things. But that's always been a driving force behind me, is like, we are not promised. And I often think it's like, wow, had she had a traditional job, she wouldn't have been retired yet.
Yep.
And they would have never enjoyed life. And that's like a big driving factor. And I think just because that circumstance did happen in our life, that really drives me. Like, you can't wait till tomorrow to start enjoying your life, to start living in that calling. And I do feel like that is part of God's plan for us, is like we are meant to put on earth to create and to do work that honors him. We're not meant to sit and do nothing. Work is honorable. And I don't think we can be is it Proverbs 32 woman? I don't think any of us can live up to that, but that's a high standard, but it's about living in that. But I also do believe when it goes back to strengths that, and Don Clifton believed this too, that God put gifts inside of each of us. It's part of our talent DNA. And when he designed us and created us, he put these gifts inside of you. He put them inside of me. He put them inside everybody listening. They all look different, just like you just shared with your daughters.
Right.
And I really believe that. So our goal and our mission in life is to figure out what the heck are those talents, then how do I use them? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm curious. Once you have a client, they take this Clifton Strengths, and then where do you proceed from there? I think you do what, like 10 weeks of one-on-one counseling, or is it 8 weeks?
Yes. So it's coaching or mentoring, definitely not counseling.
Oh, okay. Wrong word.
Empathy. There's no counseling. No.
Get down and do push-ups, huh? Coaching.
Right. Yeah. Coaching. I even consider it more mentoring because it definitely is a framework, and it's basically 4 core elements that we look at. The one biggest element is what I call the you phase. And that's where we get to know you at a deeper level. So it's your strengths is a huge piece of it, but it's also the skills you've learned through, whether it be career, life, whatever. And I give them an energy audit to do. It's the skills you enjoy doing, because we've all learned to do different skills, but just because we can do something doesn't mean we should. There's a lot of skills we have to do.
Yep.
And then also your core values. That's part of the you. If you kind of think of I like to think of a Venn diagram. So if you have your one you circle here, and then the next circle would be your vision for your life. And I'm a big believer in figure out what does your ideal life look like, and then create work that aligns, let you live that life, versus how society does, like, oh, this is your work. Now you've got to plug in your life around these little pieces left over.
Uh-huh.
I like to flip that around, just like what you and your husband did, where you live on this farm, you've created that. So now you create work that lets you have that life.
Right. Right. What would be one of the most surprising or greatest success stories you've had of changing from this field to this field?
From a client perspective?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One of my clients she was a teacher, and we met 3 years ago. So she's coming out of COVID, which was horrendous for teachers, trying to do that.
I was teaching music lessons. They made me teach online. I'm the kind of person who never really gained weight after high school, so many people struggle with that. My throat, it felt like a cat had scratched the inside every single night. There were days I literally could not even whisper. And at the time, I had not married my now husband, but I had a house and 9 kids to maintain. I was seeing him at the time. His solution was I had Long Island iced teas night after night after night, because the alcohol, and because they're so cold, that's what allowed me to teach the next day, because I had to teach, but I packed on 30 pounds very fast, and they're not going away as easily as they went on.
Oh, I know. Why is that so unfair?
I can appreciate teachers, and that COVID was very hard on teachers. It was terrible for me.
Yeah. So when I had met her, she had already left her teaching position. She just burned out, stressed out, well-being was suffering. And ironically, I had one of her best friend was a guest on my podcast.
Oh, funny.
And
okay.
After we talked, she's like, oh my gosh, you have to talk to my friend Andrea, so we connected, and she went through the program, and it was a lot immediately after knowing strengths. And she knew about Clifton Strengths, but she'd never really, I don't even remember she'd ever took the assessment or not. She was aware of it, but we realized which of her talents she wasn't using. And when you're not utilizing your natural talents of how you naturally think, feel, and behave, that's where you can go in depression. You can go, life just doesn't work well for you because you're not using your natural gifts.
What you're called to be using, what
Right.
you're born to use.
Right. So, I mean, one of her talent themes was input and ideation. And we just talked about, like, could you write a blog? She had so much information about being a great teacher and so many ideas. It's like, just start a blog. And even just her starting the blog just gave her so much more meaning in her life at that moment. It was amazing, just that little bitty change. And then she did go on to create another program. After we finished up the whole program, she created like a mentorship for other teachers. Now, unfortunately for her, she then had family crisis happen and she had to kind of step away from it. But she's getting back to that eventually. But it was just
amazing. She has direction now.
She has direction. She knows, she knows where to get it. But it was just amazing to me, just her taking on and starting to use. She has a high learner as another talent theme, and she wasn't learning anything. And if we have high learning, we're not learning. We just feel like, what's even happening in my life? Like, it's just not.
That makes me wonder, do our strengths, can they change over time?
So that's a great question. Everybody always asks that. Yes and no. So they are believed to be our thumbprint. So they are in us. They will morph around a little bit, but generally speaking, what is your top 5 and your top 10 are really where you live, in a great life. You're living and working in those top 10. The chances of one of those dropping to number 34, or your number 34, the bottom of the list, jumping to top 10 is very unlikely.
Okay. I was going to turn off my background. My library is behind me. The reason I asked this was because I'm a learner. I love learning. But lately, I've just reached a point where I keep getting like new updates on my blog or whatever. And I'm just like, I don't want to keep learning stuff. I want to just be able to do what I'm trying to do. So that's why I was curious. But it sounds like top 5, 10 don't change that much.
No, the only time, and like people often ask, well, should I take it again? I took it, 5 years ago. Should I take it again? I always say, well, one, if you answer the questions honestly, because that does happen. I've had people like they had to do it for a corporate thing, or I just recently did a workshop of 100 EMS people, and most of them didn't want to be there. They didn't understand it. So a lot of them just boom, 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 didn't answer correctly. So if you answer,
why would anyone lie on it?
Because they didn't want to do it. That's just
okay.
They just
they're just almost deliberately messing it up.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen. So if you answer the questions honestly, which most people do, it's enough. If you read it and it feels like, oh wow, that is me when I'm at my best. That's another key thing too, because a lot of times we can read it and think like, oh wow, I used to do that. I used to think that way. I used to love that. I'm not now. And maybe that's why I'm depressed. That's why I'm anxious. That's why I'm not successful. That's why, all these things are happening. The only time I do suggest, and this is Gallup's point of view on it as well, is if you have major life trauma. I mean, major, things that just totally rock your world, rock your beliefs, rock everything you once thought about life, gets rocked. That might change how you answer the questions.
Okay.
Yeah,
I had a friend who had a trauma and years later realized that's when she quit writing. And I think writing helped her get back into it. I was struck by another comment on your blog that more people should fear, what was the blog? Fear of missing out, I think was the piece. But you talked about how people really should fear not living up to their potential. what is your experience? Do people even know what their potential is? Do they completely fail to see what their potential could be?
I think so. I mean, that's part of why, I do what I do. And, the other two elements that I was talking about earlier is your purpose-driven problem is the other. So we have that we have that vision for your life. There's the purpose-driven problem,
Mhm.
and then the impact and income. And I feel like your potential lies in how you take those strengths and use them to solve a problem. And I feel like we all are called we see something in the world, and it doesn't mean feeding starving children in Africa, or curing cancer, but it could just be one little thing that we notice that nobody else it doesn't bother anybody else. And
Mhm.
we see this and we think, wow, somebody should do something about that. Well, that is you.
That's you. Yep.
But so many people, it's fear. Fear keeps us from stepping into and doing that, changing things, leaving behind one thing to do something else. So a lot of times it's just fear or our own mindset gets in the way. The thoughts we talk ourselves into something, but then as quickly as we think, oh, I'm going to do this,
Mhm.
fear sets in and we're like, oh, I can't, but I can't.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
Yeah, it's I think being in music really helped me with that you're on stage so much that you kind of lose that fear, and it's just like, yeah, everybody's watching, and oh well. How do you help people get over that fear?
There's a lot I talk about in the book. I talk a lot on mindset because it is such a huge piece and it does hold us back. And there's three big voices that we hear that can keep us. And being a sailor, I kind of went to town on the sailing analogies in one
Mhm.
chapter. And we talk about the danger buoy, sharks, and anchors. And each one we can address in a different way. So danger buoys are those thoughts we tell ourselves, like, I'm not smart enough. I'm not talented enough. I'm not beautiful enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not, it's beliefs we believe about ourselves.
Mhm.
And um, I say the way to overcome that, and I'm simplifying things very much here, but one way to overcome that is just really look for proof that that's not who you are.
Uh-huh.
Normally, we can go back in our past and find ways that we have done things that prove otherwise.
Right.
Um, the sharks are other people in our lives. And a lot of times we live with sharks, or we have parents who are sharks, or a boss that, coworkers. It's usually people that
Uh-huh.
love us and they're trying to protect us, but they don't believe in our dream. They don't understand it. So I say they take a bite out of your dream.
Uh-huh.
And if it's a shark that's keeping you from moving forward, you just can't talk about your dream with them. They just don't
Yep.
understand it yet. You just got to go show them. Just don't talk about it, because normally, again, we live with sharks. They love us. They're just trying to protect us. Um, and then the anchors are more societal beliefs. Maybe they're a family belief that once maybe served us,
Mhm.
but that belief no longer serves us. And it can keep us stuck. And with that, it's just really creating a new crease in our brain, because our crease in our brain thinks one way. We just need to flip it. I always say, just flip the paper and create a new crease of how you want
Right.
life to be. Mhm.
Right. That's so powerful. That's been coming up a lot in my life lately, where it seems like so many people I talk to, so many things I read keep coming back to this: what you think is what you're going to become. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said, whether you think you can or you can't, you're
You're
right.
right. Yes. Mary Kay Ash used
So,
to cite that a lot. Yes.
yeah. Yeah. I just read a book, and in fact, one of the authors I interviewed maybe a month or two ago, her book is about intention and about how what you think so profoundly impacts. I happened to find a similar book when we went to McKay's here in Tennessee, which is an amazing bookstore. It's all used books and just acres of books on every subject. And it was really a good reminder. And then, of course, we were talking about faith, and that keeps coming up in my reading too, the power of the tongue. And bit by bit, I started to realize, no, this was not just figurative. This is very literal. What you say matters. And if you say positive things are pretty likely to happen. If you're always saying negative things, guess what?
Right. Yeah, our thoughts definitely do throw things out. And one of the things I talk about in the book is the reticular activating system. I think it is RAS. And I am not a scientist. I haven't studied this. I just have learned it and I don't understand it, but I believe it to be true. Of sometimes our thoughts create things that start coming towards us. And it sounds very woo-woo, not woo like I talked about earlier, but the whole like woo. But it's even when you think about like buying a car, sometimes we buy a car that we feel like is the only one out there in that color. And you drive it home and everybody has that car. Like,
well, that's funny. I just got a new Jeep, and I'm going to be very shocked if I start seeing Jeeps like mine, because we got it because my husband's business travel is picking up, and I can't spend days every month driving him to and from the airport because it's a long way away. So we've got my website on the front on either side. We've got our farm logo on each of the front doors, and we've got the big Books and Brews logo on the tire cover on the back. So if I see a Jeep that looks like mine,
right,
I'll be beyond shocked.
Yeah,
lots of red ones though. So
right.
Yeah. So anything else you want to tell us about your book or about your business?
No, I think that's, we've covered a lot today. We've done a lot today. And I think, again, my message out there is just figure out, like, live your calling, succeed with strengths. Like, figure out what it is. What season are you in now? What are you called to do? And then how can you go create it? What do you need to do to create that? And start small. It doesn't have to be, my mindset now is like, because I used to think, well, eventually leave that job and start something else. But right now I feel like it's like, even if you start something on the side, like you said, you do a lot of different things. I do a lot of different things. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. Start something that just is going to light you up and fill your cup. So
what did you call that? Portfolio
career. Portfolio career. And start kind of building that. And life is short. It is so short. We aren't promised tomorrow. And as we both said earlier, it's like the last thing I want is to show up at the pearly gates and have God look at me and say, whew, I gave you a lot of gifts and you did not use them, girl. What happened?
You spent them watching TV and eating bonbons.
Yes. Like, I don't know about you. I don't want that. So, I'm trying my darndest to try to tap into the gifts God gave me. And sometimes it's hard. It is hard, I'm tired. Fear sets in still, so it's not easy. But I also do feel surrounding yourself with other people that will support your dream is essential.
That's powerful. What is that saying, that you are kind of the average of the 5 people you surround yourself with?
Yeah.
So, my husband happens to do a lot of work in quantum computing. So
okay.
I guess I'm an average of quantum computing and rabbit poop. I don't know.
But you probably find you like to talk with other people who are homesteading like you, and finding those people that understand your vision and goal for that. Same thing. If you're going to write a book, surround yourself with people like, or listening to these podcasts. I assume a lot of people that listen want to write a book or have wrote a book.
Exactly. Right. And that has, I think, really been key to me when I was going through a hard time in my life. When I joined Night Riders, which I earlier mentioned, I'm still attending by Zoom now that I live 1,500 miles from them. That was a profound change in my life, to surround myself with other people who not only said, I want to write a book, I believe I can write a book, and I believe together we can all write our books better. And then we went on to establish a publishing company. Gabriel Sorn started as kind of the in-house publishing company for night writers. And I've taken it and built it into more of a business since then. But yes, surround yourself with people who are doing what you want to do, who are the type of people you want to be.
Mm-hmm. And even if it means virtually, it could mean listening to their podcasts. It could be reading their books. It doesn't have to be, I mean, it's great if you can have a relationship with some of those people too. Yep. That's huge. But if you can't right now, then have them. It can be a one-sided relationship. You take what you can from other people who've gone before you doing what you want to do. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where can people find you online?
Right. My website's sherimiterco.com. So SHERIMITERCO.com. You can also get there from Discovering Your Calling. Make sure you have the ING, not discover. And I'm on Facebook more than I should be. So you can usually find me there. And I'm also on LinkedIn.
Okay. You can find me at booksandbrews.net. You can find my books at lauravosica.com. You can find, who am I missing, our sponsor, Gabriel Sorn Press, at gabrielsornpress.com. And you can find all my wonderful animals, including, I'll have to get it up, we just had brand new bunnies 2 days ago and brand new twin lambs, I think 3 days ago. So I have to get pictures of those, but you can find all of our animals at glenmerrillfarms.wordpress.com. For some reason, I keep writing it down wrong on my notes, glenmerrillfarms.wordpress.com. So our next interview on Books and Brews Light coming up is B.G. Howard with crime thrillers laced with romance. We have just on our full podcast had Ashley Fontaine and Andrea Ems with their psychological and paranormal thriller, Eternal Beauty. So that was fun. Ashley had her bottle of wine. So we had a lot of fun during that interview. And I'm trying to think who we have. Oh, yes. Coming up next on the Full Books and Brews podcast, we have Jake Needham, who is coming to us all the way from Bangkok, thanks to the miracle of technology. And he writes, I think, kind of thrillers too. So I'm looking forward to that. We are looking for authors of Christmassy or winter themed stories to talk to you in December and January. And we're hoping to find an author of medieval historical fiction who either lives near Knoxville or is willing to make the trip, because we have a fantastic place to do that interview. We found a place that's just begging for that. So if that is you, please contact us. And thank you for being my guest. Cheers.
Cheers. Wish it was something more than water.